One of the highlights for me was going on some ride-alongs with the cops wearing bulletproof vests.
I was an undercover narcotics agent. I wasn't illegally buying illegal drugs. I was legally buying illegal drugs during that time.
So it turns out Fred was a raging coke addict. In his retirement, he developed a small problem with cocaine.
Then I started this in 2014 and I sold 13 bikes.
What are you hiding, Lakita Clear?
Actually, I wouldn't mind playing a killer, but have I played a killer? If you were playing someone in a movie, a character in a movie, who would you want to play? That's what I want to know.
I want to play the star quarterback that gets all the girls.
Okay, that's cool. I'll take it.
I love that. And by the way, you could have stopped that first sentence with, there's a lot of crazy founders out there.
There's a lot.
If you think we are, don't tell us. No.
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome back to Unlocking Moves. You're going to notice a few different things about this episode of Unlocking Moves. First of all, you'll notice that I'm in the studio by myself without a guest. I also don't have a guest on Zoom. This is just me. What we wanted to do is highlight some of the great conversations we've had over the last 49 episodes. That's right. This is our 50th episode. Who would have thought, right? As you know, one of our intents for Unlocking Moves is really highlight those key pivotal moments and decision points that really change the lives of successful entrepreneurs and leaders, because I want to inspire you to identify those same opportunities that you can take to unlock your own potential. And I hope we've inspired you along the way. I will say this, it does take a lot of guts to put yourself out there and record your own podcast, especially if you're admitting your own mistakes along the way. And then I also want to applaud my guests who almost every single time we're hearing something that they haven't admitted before. And you're going to hear a couple of those examples here during this episode today. You know, every episode I do what I call a walk and talk.
Coming at you today on today's episode of Remote. I just recorded one of the...
And I try to be unique. I try to give different locations. I try to make it fresh. In this particular episode I did for the Eric Qualman episode, I was mountain climbing with my sons in Colorado. So I decided let's do a promo from there.
Hey, coming at you from the Tears of Zion in Golden, Colorado. Rock climbing with my boys at Denver Mountain Guiding. You could hear it. I asked you if you could hear it. All right, Kurt Wilkin coming at you from the Tears of Zion in Golden, Colorado, where we've been rock climbing with our boys from Denver Mountain Guiding. Yeah, I got it right that time.
One of my favorite clips is from Bo Burlingham. Bo is an author who wrote quite a few bestsellers, including two of my favorites, The Great Game of Business and Small Giants. And during the episode, I asked him, I said, what is one question that no one ever asks you, and either you wish they would ask you, or you're kind of glad they don't? And after just a few seconds, it didn't take him very long, he answered something that's really going to surprise you. So I want you to check this one out.
People never ask me if I enjoy writing. People assume that I enjoy writing, and people say to me, you must enjoy writing. And the answer is that I hate writing.
I also have Scott Leese, who is one of my friends who's overcome a lot of adversity. He overcame both an illness and sickness that he dealt with for 4 years, as well as an opioid condition that was a result of that. So he bears his soul there a bit. And then we also cover Tyler Allgaier, who suffers from what a lot of entrepreneurs suffer from, and that is imposter syndrome. Are we really successful, or are we just imposters? And then the last clip is from my friend Jason Bronstad, who was taking a jiu-jitsu course. And he was a big boy, and he went up against a young girl who was small, and you'll see he admits that he might have gotten his ass kicked a little bit in it.
I started to get colon cancer, growths, and all this kind of just wild stuff that, you're certainly not thinking about when you're young, and you kind of have this bulletproof mentality that some of us, young former athletes have. During that hospitalization, I started getting fed pain medicine for non-recreational uses, of course. But by the time I got healed, I had this little thing that was called opioid addiction.
I have gone through an immense amount of imposter syndrome, whether it's real or not, justified or not. However, what I've learned about humanity as a whole, nobody knows exactly what they're doing. Everybody has done something for the first time. Every day at Pitted, I am doing something that I have not done before because I'm young. I haven't done any of this before. My degree's in accounting, not marketing or finance or any of this other stuff that I'm doing.
That's pretty close to the truth. Yeah, there were honestly, one of the training partners I have. She's now a sophomore at the University of Texas, Hookham. She's in the band, and she's 5'2" and very low 100s, and she could absolutely throw me around the mat. And her dad trained with us as well. He's also a smaller framed individual. He could throw me around the mats. And it was so humbling for someone that, big people have this ego, like I can do anything because I'm big. And the reality is you're not in shape. You can't do anything you think you can. So time to get in shape.
As you can tell, we cover some pretty deep ground on unlocking moves. And one of my favorite questions is the one that I asked Bo. Basically, what is one question you're never asked, and either you're secretly glad that they don't, or you wish that they would? It always invites some pretty interesting conversations. Now, this next one, I had a question teed up with Jason Ellsworth and Allison Ellsworth from Poppy. They couldn't come up with a question they're never asked, so I had one ready to go, let's just say. And you're really going to like this clip. I'll just say that.
The first one is, I want to ask you guys one question that you're never asked, and either you kind of wish they would, or you're secretly glad they don't.
Oh no. I don't know. We're such open books that I'm like.
I've got one framed up, but I want to see if anything comes to mind. Any like deep, dark secrets?
No, I mean, you spill the beans on everything, so.
I do.
Oh, now we got to fight. Now we got a.
Yeah, open book over here.
Steven was in a contest in Dallas.
Oh my God.
Came in second place in the, let me see if I got this right. Hold on.
It's so good.
Come on now.
I'm upset.
Second place
deep in the archives.
2016 Europa Dallas Men's Classic Physique Novice Class C. And
wow, that's some
we're going to show this picture online for everybody. But that's 8 years ago. The dude was a badass. Look at that picture.
Look at that picture.
Wow.
So
who is that
he
guy?
He still looks the same.
I would like to say 8 years later with 3 kids later that you would have a dad bod, but not nearly the dad bod
so
I have.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? Right. By the way, you both are incredibly great looking. This is not just a shot at Steve.
No, when he wanted to do
this, it's the tanner. It's the tanner.
All right. Well, that's going to whet your appetite for some of the fun we have on this show. 2 of my favorite questions are the one I just asked. I also like to, as you know, hit my guests up with an off-the-wall question or comment to really keep them on their toes, keep my audience on their toes. So these next 6 or 7 clips are going to be some fun takes from those questions.
My guest today is Mike Smerklo. You know him as a prominent VC with Next Coast Ventures. But Mike, as that prominent VC, I've got a hard-hitting question for you from the get-go. A few years ago or a few months ago, you posted a tweet, and I got to ask you a little bit of a backstory. The tweet is, tips I wish I'd learned in business school. Well, number 1, I don't hire coke addicts. Number 2, you're going to make mistakes. And number 3, get help. So what the hell's the backstory in the coke addict comment?
Small. Was your town that you grew up in Germany, was it large or small?
It was a super small town. It was about 3,000 people in that small town. Yeah.
Okay. So it wasn't a culture shock when you moved to Monroe, Louisiana with the toothbrush and 2 tennis rackets.
It was a huge culture shock. I mean, I remember it as if it was yesterday. I mean, obviously, I barely spoke any English. My English was not very good. And then, of course, you're Monroe, Louisiana, and I remember when I ordered breakfast in the mornings, and you order it at in the cafeteria. It was always a gamble because I was always saying yes.
But I want to start with a really hard-hitting question for you, and that is a question about heartbreak. And that is, who is a more heartbroken NFL football fan, you as a Buffalo Bills fan or me as a Minnesota Vikings fan?
This is a fantastic question. Great opener.
I'm ready.
Here we go. I had 2 ways to go with this. I went with the second way. The first way I was going to go with it is, you like to tweet about tacos a lot, like an unhealthy amount of tweets about tacos. We're going to skip that one, but here's the one I want to ask. You've said on more than one occasion that one of your bucket list items is to have a conversation with Mike Tyson. So I've got two questions. First of all, why? And second of all, I've got Mike Tyson right here for you. So what is your question you're going to ask Iron Mike? Before we dive into that, I've got an off the wall, out of left field question I've got to ask to throw you off balance. Are you ready?
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Ready.
Here we go. So before you became a keynote speaker and a speaking coach, you were an actress. And from what I can tell, a very accomplished actress. But the themes, the plots that you seem to get into were a little bit on the psychological side. Movies like Fraction, Justified, Suicide Dolls. It shows where people were being murdered. There were suicide pacts and other, how shall we say, unstable, unhealthy things. So Lakita Clear, what are you hiding? What do we need to know about Lakita? Or was that all an act?
Really excited about. It's probably it's quickly become one of my favorite flavors that we've developed.
It's a lot of pressure for me to like it on air here as we go.
But you're a good actor, though.
You're good at acting. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's
That's amazing. Actually, it is really good.
It's so good.
And there's just a small sample of some of the questions we cover on Unlocking Moves. I want to especially thank people like Autumn Manning and Lakita Clear for basically playing the foil to my humor, my sense of humor, my dark sense of humor. I also really appreciate that clip from the Poppy episode. That was one of my favorites. In fact, we've got quite a few others that we'd like to highlight, including this next snippet from the Poppy episode where we cover their Shark Tank appearance and how that got started. Check out the balls on this one.
And I like to ask my guests an off-the-wall question, maybe throw in a comment to keep them on their toes, keep my audience on their toes. Ready for this?
Ready.
Let's go.
All right, so about 5 years ago, you guys were on Shark Tank.
Hi, Sharks. I'm Allison Ellsworth.
And I'm Stephen Ellsworth. And together, we're the co-founders of Mother Beverage based in Dallas, Texas.
And your beverage, as we see here is Poppy, is an apple cider vinegar-based drink, and it tastes amazing. But on Shark Tank, you decided to lead off by giving all the sharks a shot of straight apple cider vinegar, which had to have tasted like crap.
Who wants to take a shot with me? Ready? Cheers. So as you guys know by now, that was a shot of apple cider vinegar.
So tell me a little bit about the background, because that was ballsy.
It
so
was.
Who and why and what made you decide to do that?
I mean, it makes good TV. At the end of the day, Shark Tank is a TV show, but I'll never forget because I was extremely pregnant. And so while practicing, Steven actually ended up taking, I think, like 6 shots. Like, it made him so physically ill. Yeah. So going in, highly don't recommend doing that. But I will never forget Bethany Frankel's face.
That was a shot of
screaming at us, like, how dare we make her do it? And it was quite a moment.
Yeah, she literally got on the ground and was like rolling around, screaming. It was this whole thing.
So they didn't know it was going to be straight apple cider vinegar when you did it.
No, the best part about Shark Tank is you don't know anything and they don't know anything. Mm-hmm. And it's truly that way. And so we went in there, we made it sound like they were taking a shot for like the club. And it was a shot of apple cider vinegar. So
that's awesome. Well, kudos to you for having the guts to do that and for pulling it off. And obviously spoiler alert, they were funded on Shark Tank.
We did get a deal.
So, awesome.
Mm-hmm. That clip always cracks me up. I can only imagine what it's like to take 6 or 7 shots of apple cider vinegar to prepare for the show, but then also to have the sharks on national television taking shots of apple cider vinegar. Kudos to you guys for making that happen. So also on the show, we cover some embarrassing moments, whether it's recently or maybe childhood embarrassing moments. So let's cover one with my guest, Ramon Ray. And he talks about, let's just say he talks about almost burning down the house. Let's go with that. I'm going to take you back to your childhood. My crack research team uncovered quite a few articles about, or maybe not quite a few, but an article about your childhood and your upbringing. And it seemed like you really wanted to be the guy that learned how everything worked, how and why everything worked. Specifically, it said that you tore apart or maybe pulled apart your talking teddy bear to see how it worked.
You guys
You also built a transistor radio or a radio from Radio Shack, and it also said that you lit a wall of your childhood home on fire.
I did.
So that's my question. Tell me what the hell happened there, and don't leave out any details. I want to hear the gory story.
Well, the gory story is that I was playing in the basement. Regarding the last point, I can go to all 3 points. But the gory part is that I was playing in the basement, going back to, I guess, tinkering. We're all different. God's made us all different, obviously. And I was just, in the basement of the house I was residing in, all kind of paint thinners and spray stuff, cans, this, old motors, just a basement of a person's dream who loves to tinker. And so I don't know why I did it, but I sprayed something against the wall. Kurt, I can't tell you why. I just maybe wanted to see, is it really flammable? It says it is, but what does that mean? Like, how flammable? Wasn't trying to burn the house down, but sprayed that sucker against the wall, lit it. Ooh, thankfully, it wasn't big enough. I think it either fizzled out, because I don't recall hitting anything, so it must have just fizzled out. Thankfully, I think it was a brick wall in the basement, but what if it was something different? So that's my gory story of almost burning down. It could have been bad. That's a basement. Fire only goes up. So
that's awesome.
That's my story.
To me, the funniest part about that clip is when I asked the question, I thought he was going to be 6 or 8 or something like that. I'm not sure if it's in the clip or not, but later he admits that he was 14 years old. It's a pretty funny story. Thank you, Ramon, for letting me poke a little fun. And also in that episode, I admitted where I almost burned down my childhood home carrying a torch underneath a house. So anyway, we admit all kinds of things here on Unlocking Moves. So with this next clip, I want to cover a couple of guys, a couple of brothers and their partner. So James and Jack Dumoulin. I had James on the show, and their group is called the School of Hard Knocks. And what they do is they go ask people that look rich how they got rich, and some pretty invasive questions about how much money they make and how they made it and such. So he gets a lot of advice. This is a great show. He does it maybe not daily, but definitely several times a week. And he's all over Instagram and TikTok. Great job, James and Jack. But I asked him, with all this advice, what's the greatest piece of advice that you've picked up along the way? So I'd love to share with you what James shared.
My guest today is James Dumoulin, and speaking of stories, this guy's got a million of them because that's what he does for a living. He asks strangers on the streets about their best career advice and counsel. So what is the craziest piece of advice you've received on your word on the street?
Yeah, I'd say my crazy advice was actually recently. We were in Miami, and we were asking someone, what's your best financial advice for the younger generation? What do you wish someone told you when you were coming out of school? And his advice was actually buy a Lamborghini. and the thought process behind it is that if you buy the Lamborghini, people are going to gravitate towards you. He's like, no one's going to respect you if you're showing up places in a Honda Civic. When in reality, it's like a lot of people would make the argument that it's like that's not economical at all, right? It's materialistic, like it's spending your money on liabilities versus assets. But so I would say that was something kind of like crazy because most people would not advise people, especially the younger generation, to just go buy a Lamborghini.
That is not the advice I would have expected to come from James's work, but you know what? It actually works. If you're trying to impress people and make them think that you're more than you are, or just try to be more than you are, maybe you got to fake it till you make it a little bit. So I don't have a problem with that advice. So my next few clips are going to be, shall we say, more personal in nature. And I'm going to start with, I had Coach Mark Gottfried on the show. Coach Gottfried was a coach at UCLA. He was a longtime coach. He was the assistant coach at UCLA, but he was a longtime coach at North Carolina State and Alabama. And so along the way, many times he played my beloved Arkansas Razorbacks in basketball, including a few, shall we say, disappointing losses by my Hogs. So let's check out this clip with Coach Mark Gottfried.
You guys ended up winning the game in the national championship, breaking my hearts and the hearts of the entire Arkansas Razorback Nation. My question for you, Mark, and I want you to be 1,000% honest here. How did you cheat?
There's no cheating involved there, but that was an amazing night. And there's so many stories around it, but the after effect of that game was the visit to the White House with your beloved former governor, Bill Clinton, who we had a wonderful day with him in the White House when we gave him the UCLA jersey to wear. How about that? Or to put on. But we had fun. But that was a magical run and a magical night back in 1995.
That's awesome. I hope Bill Clinton accused you of cheating at the White House too, for that matter.
As much as that one is funny, it also hurts a lot. And Coach Gottfried, I want you to know that still hurts me 20, 30, whatever it is, years later, I still think you cheated. All right, this next clip is going to be even more personal in nature because on the show with Eric Qualman, where we covered his theory of being flawsome, being perfectly flawed, and that we're not perfect, I had, shall we say, I had an injury that you could tell that I had an injury from the way I looked when I was doing the podcast. And so along the way, we talked about how my injury occurred, and I may have been more factual than I probably should have if I'm really trying to make me not look like an idiot. So check out this clip from the Eric Qualman episode.
I love it. The concept of flawsome. You could be the spokesperson for this podcast. I mean, it's exactly what we try to preach every day. And I love that you brought that home. One of the things that was, as we were preparing for the show with my producer, he noticed this scratch on my nose. And he said, Kurt, don't you have some concealer or something to hide that? I'm like, I'm on a freaking podcast with Eric Qualman talking about flaws. I'm not going to conceal it. And if he asks me, I'll tell him the story, which is a dumbass Kurt story, but I'll wait for him to ask the question.
No, I want to hear it. What's going on? Let's go into that. Because I didn't notice it. I thought it was just your glasses were resting there.
Well, you can't tell anybody the story, okay? So keep it to yourself. But this past weekend, I was out at the ranch hunting. And at night, we have a green light overlooking the camp where if a critter, a pig or something comes in to eat some corn, you can shoot the pig at night. And at night, you also, at least my flawed way, I got closer to my rifle in order to be able to see. And I was too close. And so when it kicked, it's a very powerful rifle. It got me in the nose. So nobody else knows that story. Please don't tell anybody.
Oh, man. I could easily do that. Now, did you make the shot? Did it work?
Hey, I don't remember, Eric. That was so long ago.
Okay.
No, I missed a shot.
On this podcast, I've had the opportunity to interview one of my idols on this show. The idol also happens to be my brother. He was a big entrepreneurial inspiration for me. When he was younger, he was a challenge. Let's just say that. I love this clip that you're about to see. We talk a little bit about a famous childhood story from our family. And Rolf is able to turn it somehow into a entrepreneurial cheat code. Here we go.
But I'm going to go back to when you were, I'm going to guess around 12 years old. No, you were probably younger than that. Probably call it 8 years old. And your family was on a vacation in the upper Midwest, driving through the state of South Dakota. And if I remember correctly, you were annoying the living shit out of your siblings and your parents. Your mom pulled over and said, if you don't stop it, I'm going to let you out of the car and make you walk. And if I recall, she put you on the side of the highway and made you walk a little bit. Can you tell me a little bit about that story? And are you going through counseling right now still about that?
Well, you know, a key part of negotiation is you want to feel out where the limits are, right? And that's really important, I think, as an entrepreneur. And so I doubt, in my mind, I was being hilarious. And I think my humor was probably a little advanced for the time. So, dear my sainted mother, I decided just to see where the limits are. And I think we all do that, the third rail. And sometimes in negotiation, we screw up, right? And so that was a classic case of screwing up, right? But I learned a lot from it. I think I'm a better negotiator. And I think she came back after a couple hours there, you know, in 103 heat and picked me up and bought me an ice cream cone. So Mom, I love you. And yeah, I learned a lot about negotiation from you. So thank you.
Just in case you were wondering, my mom didn't drive more than 20 feet away, but he did learn a valuable lesson. And I love the fact that he said he learned how to negotiate and test those limits. That's a great life lesson, Rolf. Thank you for that.
I think that story is great. Obviously, Rolf embellished a little bit. I don't think my mom truly drove more than 20 feet down the road. But the fact that he so quickly was able to say, hey, that's an entrepreneurial lesson. It's a tip in negotiation. You got to know where that third rail is, where your guardrails are. Rolf, you're witty and quick and very much an inspiration to me in my own entrepreneurial journey. On that note, we're going to wrap this puppy up. Thank you so much for joining me on Unlocking Moves in our first 50 episodes. As I said, please go like and subscribe and give me a nice 5-star review wherever you consume your podcast. Check me out next week on Unlocking Moves.
If you're an entrepreneur and you think you might have outgrown a member of your team, or maybe you've got a mic, as we talked about in Who's Your Mic, check out this quiz at who'syourmic.com/quiz. That's who'syourmike.com/quiz.